the last few weeks. So how to handle them, come to Fundamentals for Startups. And that week, the University of Washington Entrepreneurial Law Clinic is going to present on robotics, so that should be a really fun presentation. We have the Maker Summit coming up on April 22nd. If you don't know, that is in our own makerspace in collaboration with another makerspace on campus. They are going to have all kinds of stuff. It's going to be very family friendly. Anybody can come, whether you're associated with the University of Washington or not. There'll be demos. There'll be stuff to see. I strongly recommend it if you're interested in kind of maker culture, but you know, you don't want to wait for the next Maker Fair event that's coming in Seattle, which is kind of expensive anyway. Come to the Maker Summit. It's free. We'd love to see you. And then Waffle Wednesday is coming up. Normally that would be on April 19th. So if Waffle Wednesday is on your calendar, please change it. It's going to be April 26th. If you don't know what Waffle Wednesday is, this happens over in Startup Hall, which is our sister incubator, over on Campus Parkway. And it's fantastic. They make such good waffles. They have gluten-free ones. The toppings are amazing. It's just a righteous experience all around. And there's a lot of really great networking to be had there, too. So now, coming back to our headliner, Hen Young wanted me to just explain that she is 4'11" and about 105 pounds, and then stop there, but I'm not going to. She advises our startups. She's had over 20 years of experience with startups, helping build teams in HR, helping to raise money. She's fantastic, and she is going to talk to us today.
Thank you, Kira.
Thank you, Hen.
Thank you. Okay. So first of all, thank you for spending your lunchtime with me. This is very special, especially since it's a sunny Friday. And we all know what happens when the weather is sunny in Seattle, right? We all call in sick and take the day off and go biking, hiking, or whatever it is that we love to do. So thank you for being here. So just to give you a little bit more before I go into my talk so that you have more of a reference point, what I do is I focus on this area here, your head and your heart. As you transition from being a student, from being an entrepreneur, from being a CEO to a team leader, there's a lot of stuff that happens between here and here. And I work with people to help them be able to personally scale. How do you grow this space here so that you can continue to grow and lead the company and build your business and create and invent? So what I'm going to talk about today is my observations over the 35 plus years that I've been working. These are behaviors and mindsets that you guys have probably noticed in other people. And then, you know, what happens when this is in play? So that's what I'm going to talk about today, are these mental blocks that get in the way of you being in flow. And do you know what flow is? So picture yourself doing something that is creative, that you really love. You sit down, you start doing it, and all of a sudden, for you, time stops. And the next time you look up, instead of it being, 6 in the morning, it's like 5 o'clock at night. But you feel so satisfied and content, right? That is the optimal way that we like to work. But these things I'm going to talk about, they actually get in the way of that. They get in the way of our ability to be in that space where we're creative and inventive and at our very best. So, in case you forget who I am, this is me. All right, the first thing I want to talk about is called unmaking. And I call this Unmaking Releases You from past measures, expectations, context, criteria, perceived successes and failures to the future that makes room for new contexts and perspectives. And my question to you is, what unmaking should you allow? And let me elaborate on this a little bit. We all come from some place. You're either coming from a senior project in your master's or PhD program into a startup. You are an employee that is going from one job to the next, or perhaps you're transferring from one department to the next. Or perhaps you're a consultant and you are transferring from one company to the next, all right? We carry this, we all know the term luggage or baggage, right? We carry these expectations from whatever we came from to where we're going. And what happens is that it doesn't fit the context that we're moving to or the context that we're currently in. And so we continue to measure ourselves with expectations, and we continue to look at who we are through these perceived failures and successes, and all it does is holds us back. But here's another piece to it. The other piece is that sometimes that's comfortable for us because where we're going has so much ambiguity that it's more comfortable to hang on to our previous successes and failures and expectations than to move forward. And what I'm inviting you to learn and to consider is this. You can't move forward if you're dragging something that belongs over there. You're not going to be able to figure out how to be successful here if you're still measuring your success over here. Okay? And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. The next one is attention, right? We all know that what you pay attention to increases, right? But what kind of attention is that? Is that directed by external factors, circumstances, or situations? That is distracted, non-productive energy. And then there's the focused attention. That attention is being fully present each moment. That is a directed attention. That is a powerful, productive attention and energy, right? So, you know, if your day is dictated by the emergency, right? If it's dictated by the phone that rings all the time, if it's dictated by your email, if it's dictated by you handling what's first and foremost in front of you, that is distracted energy. Because what happens is that once you get rid of all those distractions, then you realize it's 6 o'clock at night, right? I can't go home to my family. I can't take care of this deadline that I have. And you wonder where all your time has gone. So when we think about whatever you focus your energy on grows, think about, is it distracted energy or is it focused, directed energy, right? And then another observation I made is about learning. That learning is iterative and concentric, right? There are these lessons that come around in different periods of our life. And they knock on our door. And first it's a raindrop, right? And then it's a spot of water in a little pond. And then it's a spot of water on the lake. And then it turns into a full-on like that, right? And the thing is that the longer we stop or the longer we try and forget the lesson that's knocking on our door, the bigger that it gets and the more that it impacts our life, right? But there's a comfort box. And when we're in our comfort box, it keeps us from learning. So let me give you an example. I had a young entrepreneur that I was coaching, and he wants to be an entrepreneur very badly. This is the dream he's had for a long time. But he figured that he couldn't be an entrepreneur until he really understand the life cycle of how a product is made. So he got a job at Microsoft as a program manager for a product. And so he's in that job. The job isn't satisfying to him. And he still talks about being an entrepreneur, but he won't make this step. You know, that all the small decisions and then that step to be an entrepreneur, he won't do it. So we talk about it, and after about 6 months of ruminating on it, I asked him, I said, okay, you know, it's the proverbial, you know, piss or get off the pot conversation. And I said, so what is it? And he said, comfort. I said, what do you mean by comfort? He said, I'm in this box called comfort. And as long as I'm in this box, I'm okay. I don't have to make a decision. I like this box right now. But in being in that box, he's not going to be the entrepreneur that he wants to be. So my question to you is this. What's the lesson that you know is knocking on your door? Knocking louder and louder and louder. And it's something you need to embrace and learn. And if you learn it, it could help you with getting over whatever the block is. It could help you in running your company. It could help you making a very key decision. It could help you in leading your team because they probably know you need to learn that lesson. But because you're in your comfort box, you're not going to learn the lesson. And I want to talk a little bit about tools and templates. And I know in this room, when you say tools and templates, it can mean a lot of different things, whether or not you're in science or whether you're in tech, okay? So just bear with me. So tools are implements that facilitate an outcome. For example, capabilities, competencies, and talents. They're versatile and they can be customized in application. And if they could talk, they can say this: I am capable and I can figure it out. Templates are patterns, molds, and models. For instance, forms, processes, and systems. One size fits all. If they have a voice, they would say, I've done this before and I can repeat it here. So they're both good. However, it's knowing how to use them and when to use them. So for example, if you are doing something where it is new every time and you have to tweak it every time, then of course you're going to use tools. But if you're doing something that's repetitive and now you're realizing you can do it over and over again and you need to bump the quality and the consistency, of course you're going to go to templates, right? It sounds very matter of course. However, here's the deal. We have a favorite. And what will happen is that we will apply that favorite even though it is really not working well, right? My invitation to you is this. If you're doing something with repetition and you need to have consistency, templates. If you're a tools person and you love being able to innovate every time you do something, but you're in a situation where it requires templates, you're going to have to make an adjustment or you're in the wrong place. Same thing as if you're a template person and that's the way you work, you like to standardize, codify, and not customize, and you're in a situation where it is new all the time, you either need to bring a partner in or have someone on your team that can help you do that, or maybe think long term, do you belong in this space? It's when let me share a story with you. There's a CEO, his forte is consumer goods, right? He's brought into a company, a medical device company, and the board and the management company has set it up for sale. They want acquisition, but they want to raise all their sales figures and all the revenues before they have an acquisition. So they bring the CEO in, he brings up the sales figures, he just does a marvelous job, the company gets acquired, the investors exit, they're super happy, the employees get their portion, because remember, the company is totally set up from top to bottom for sale, right? The CEO is rewarded. He's rewarded with another medical device startup, except this one is from scratch, right? He was successful before he started this. So what did he do? He used all of his templates that he used in these other companies. And what happened? Not enough attention to the material science, not enough attention to the cost of goods. Instead, building these huge structures, right? The company was sold to J&J. The beautiful, elegant medical device is put on ice until their device that's currently on the market goes off patent. And the full realization of the company was never realized. That, in a sense, is what can happen when you use the wrong modality, or when you're a particular type of modality and you don't plug into somebody else who has the other modality that can help you. Yeah.
So they were acquired by J&J.
Yeah.
Technically, isn't that a success because they were able to sell it?
They were able to sell it, but not at the business that they could have had. So it was a fraction of what the business would have been. What happened was, because the material science wasn't paid attention to and the cost of goods wasn't paid attention to, it delayed getting to market, and the whole financial modeling of it was off because of the cost of goods in the material science. And so it was a delay, and the investors got frustrated and said, liquidate. So they didn't realize the full potential of that product and what it could have done in the marketplace. And they had very good metrics that showed that they would have reached that. But it frustrated the investors. The next one is triggers, right? What triggers you in your work, and what are the underlying beliefs in your triggers, and how are these beliefs taking you off course? So here's the situation, and it could be a thing or a person, but I'll give you the example of a person. So you're interacting with somebody, and they're typically a difficult person, and they treat everybody in their difficult way, but for whatever reason, it tanks you. You feel like they have my number. I don't know how this person does it, but they got my number. Every time I'm in interactions with them, I walk away feeling small. I walk away and they've got the upper hand. No, they don't. They have somehow become your trigger. Somehow you have assigned a value to that interaction, a value that's really about something in here, and not them, because they're treating everybody the same in their own rough way. So they're not singling you out, but you feel like you're being singled out, right? And so the question here is, what is that value you're assigning to that relationship? Because you probably continue to interact with that person because you need something from them in a business sense or in a product sense, or they're doing something and you need them to do their part so you can do your part, right? And the thing is to look at that. What is the value there? So here's some of the values that have come out when I have clients come to me about this. Is that I can't please them. No matter what I do, I can't please them. All right? I'm really loyal to them, but I don't get any signals back that they're loyal to me. Right? Those are values that have been assigned to that trigger. Has nothing to do with that person. It's the value that's been assigned. So how is that taking you off course? Look at your value that you're assigning to that relationship. All right, this is about energy. The question here is, are you busy on the hamster wheel? Here's the test if you're on the hamster wheel. Checklist activities. You can do whatever you need to do on autopilot. Okay? Strategic, you got to make decisions. Okay? You have to have a plan. Most of us would rather be busy than strategic because busy is easier. But strategic is what moves us forward. And if you're being busy, you're avoiding something most of the time. So if you're spending a majority of your time on busy, my question to you is, what are you avoiding? And here's the thing is about being strategic is it takes time to think. And so some of the responses I have gotten is this, but I don't have time to sit down and be strategic. Where do you even start to be strategic, right? Put time on your calendar. Just sit and think. Because here's the thing. A lot of us feel that if we're not doing something, we're not accomplishing anything. But sitting down and giving yourself the ability to think, just think time, that is being strategic. Because here's the deal, and it's going to sound really counterintuitive. Ready? If you don't dream, you have no vision for your future. If you don't dream, you can't come up with possibilities. So putting that time on your calendar, sit and dream and just think, that starts you to be strategic. Differentiation centered. How are you different? How have you built on this difference? And how are you stifling your difference? So when I was looking for pictures for this, I was just cracking up, right? So there's that brilliant one, right? That phone with the solar, can you imagine using that device? Wouldn't that be cool? You're on vacation, you just stick it to the window wherever there's sunlight, and bam, right? Or how about this? I like this. The printer and the toaster all in one, right? And if you thought about the selfie stick, honestly, what was going through that person's head when they started developing the selfie stick? And what would be more fun is to be there as they were developing the selfie stick, right? And then I love this. And you know, this I actually wish I had, this little fan here to cool the ramen, right? Right? The point is this, is that everybody is different. I know it's a cliche. I'm not going to go all pink and rainbow on you. But every one of you is different. And if you're in here and you're an entrepreneur, you're even more different. And you know it. You know it explicitly. And there's one of two approaches that I have seen that entrepreneurs take. Is that you just accept that you're different. You don't question it because it's a can of worms. And you know, you're just not going to open that box. You're just going to be different. You're going to do your thing. And you're going to create and invent and do whatever it is that you do best. Right? And you know you're not going to get like a great invention every time, but you're going to hit it. You're just going to keep, all you have to do is just keep trying. And then there's the entrepreneur that denies that they're different. It hurts too much. It's too weird to be different. They've been different for too long, and they just want to fit in. So what they do is they work overly hard to fit in. And in doing that, you actually stand out more. We all know what that looks like, right? Like in college, I don't know why I'm going to tell you this story, but in college, right, I was surrounded by people with blonde hair and blue-eyed. I love them. And I thought, you know, my hair isn't blonde, my eyes aren't blue, but I'm going to make my Asian straight hair feather like Farrah Fawcett's hair. So I worked really hard at it. But the point here is this. You're differentiated. The more you stifle that, the more you trip yourself up. Because in your differentiation, in the fact that you see the world so differently, you come up with things that other people can't come up with because they don't see the world that way. And when you do that, you create something great. You do something great. And it may only be in your universe, but you make a difference. So sit in your differentiation. Be centered in it. And allow it to express itself through you. Because if you have an ambition to do something bigger than yourself, to do something new, you're not going to do it by stifling your differentiation. What makes you different? The way you see the world. I'll talk a little bit about endurance and resilience. Endurance is standing up to the challenge. It's being resolute. It's tenacity. It's perseverance. It's resistance, actually. It's the oak tree, though, that snaps in gale force winds. Resilience is flow, move, change, push, flex, accept or eschew. It's the bamboo that bends in gale force winds and stands back up. And the question here is, where do you live? So here's the thing. You need both endurance and resilience, right? You can't have one or the other. You got to have both. But if you live in endurance, you're going to impair yourself. And so here's a couple of things for you to think about. Physiologically, our body is only made to stand 20 minutes of stress and then have several hours of rest, 3 to 5 hours of rest. When you live in endurance, you actually are putting your body under stress that whole time. And when you do that, your body doesn't get to flex between the different hormones, you know, the ones that you've heard, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, blah, blah, blah. Instead, it lives in cortisol. So why is that important? Because you guys are all living in that endurance. You're planted, you're going to get through this, right? Here's what happens. It affects the quality of your decision making. It affects the quality of you seeing opportunities and options in your environment and on the horizon. It affects your ability to productively and empathetically interact with other people. And if you want to test yourself, check your attitude when your phone isn't going fast enough. Check your attitude when your teammate isn't answering their phone. Most of you here are living in endurance and not in resilience. Resilience is this. You play all out, and then you pull back and you recover. And when something is coming at you, you make a choice. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to flex with it. But always it's a thing of pushing and pulling and moving and swaying. It's not a mindset where you plant your feet and you're going to do it come hell or high water. And then you stand there and you do this for days and weeks and months and years. Because it actually impairs you to live in endurance. But in resilience, you have options and you have rest. And something else that you should think about is this, is that if you work closely with other people and you guys are going through something together and you're the person that lives in endurance and they're the person that lives in resilience, you're going to make judgments about them. And I invite you to think about, are they handling this in resilience or are they handling this in endurance? And how am I handling this? Perhaps you're the one that's in resilience and they're the one that's in endurance. And if you want them to continue on the journey with you, help them to move to resilience. So relationships, right? So we know what fuel is. It's a source of energy. It provides forward movement. Yes, ma'am. No, you're absolutely right. No, thank you for asking that question. So thank you. I'll provide a clarification. So you're right. If in a team, if you have people that are in endurance and in resilience, it makes for a beautiful combination. However, if you have people on your team and they live in endurance, right, that's not diversity. That's called, significant, substantial burnout. And for you, if you're in resilience and they're in deep endurance, right, you're going to get this mindset of you're not working hard enough and I am working harder than you, and you're not as committed to this as I am, and I'm committed here all the time. I am committed to the end, and you obviously are not. So it actually starts to tear up a team. But that's also true for any behavior, right, that is way off center, right? Thank you for the question. So, kryptonite. I think everybody here knows who Superman is, right? I mean, this isn't going to date me, like for the Farrah Fawcett made your comment, right? So, kryptonite is Superman's, like, it throws him off. He can't work or anything like that. It weakens him. So the question for you is, which of your relationships are kryptonite? And when you're in relationship, which one are you? Are you fuel or are you kryptonite, right? So except for when you are by yourself in the bathroom, everything we do is in relationship. You can't get anything done unless you're in relationship with another person, right? But what is the quality of the relationships that you have? Are you in relationships due to obligation, but it completely drains you? Are you in relationships because of loyalty, and it completely drains you? And if you're an entrepreneur, that question actually has a bit more catalyst behind it. If you have people on your team due to obligation and not to what they're performing or what they can contribute, and they would be more productive in another environment, but you're not telling them that because it's obligation, but you know it's not working, do them a favor and be honest with them. If you're doing it out of loyalty, do yourself and that person a favor and have a straight conversation with them. And then, if you're the kryptonite in someone else's life, understand how much courage it takes for them to have that conversation with you. I'm telling you, you're gonna swim or sink. You're gonna be successful or die by the relationships you have. And you can't afford to be a friend to everybody because you only have so much time and they only have so much time. So be wise about the relationships that you have and be honest and have integrity in those relationships. Decisions are intention. They are an aggregate of small steps. Where are your small steps leading you? And if the trajectory isn't changed, what is your destination? See, here's the thing. We believe that there's this big decision. And once we discover that big decision, or once we make that big decision, it's going to completely pivot what we're going to do, where we're going, and it's going to take us to this other place, right? It's actually false. Decisions are made by very small steps. You're making decisions in your work, little small decisions, and it's actually going to lead you in an aggregate fashion to the last decision that you make that will actually do the pivot, okay? And the thing is, we all have intentions, and sometimes we don't have enough courage to be honest with ourselves what that intention really is. And so we say this, but then we do this, and then we end up over here, and I'm surprised I'm over here. But the reality is we've made small steps to get there. If you're leading a team and you're leading a company, you lack integrity if you're not intentional and honest about where your steps are taking the company, where your steps are leading your team. So my question to you is, where are you going? Where are your small decisions leading you? And are you going to end up where you say you're going to end up? And then this is my last slide. Success is not linear. I want to prove it to you. In order to have ideas, you got to feed inspiration, right? What does that mean? It means something different for everybody. For one person, it's hiking in the mountains. For another person, it's doing art. For another person, it's burying their face in an algebra book. By the way, that would not be me. If you're going to direction, you can read everything you want to read. You can talk to everybody you want to talk to. At the end of the day, you're going to take direction from your heart, your passion, or your gut, right? Luck. What is luck? Luck is preparation plus opportunity times unpredictability. That's what luck is. Preparation plus opportunity and then unpredictability. How do you get insight? How do you get foresight? How do you see around corners? It's failure plus success times repetition. That's how you get there. And then last, relationships is people plus time investment. And there's actually one factor that's not included in that, and that is communication, right? Relationships happen if you intentionally communicate, whether that's verbal communication or whether that's sign language or whether that's written communication. If you sit in this room and you think, my body speaks for me, I have really great body language and facial expression, and that's how I communicate with people, I'm going to tell you right now, no. I can sit across the room, and if I don't know you and I don't have a relationship with you, and you're making faces at me, it means nothing except that maybe you're psycho. So remember that. Relationship requires communication. You got to talk in some form, okay? That's it. That's all that I have. Any questions? Yes, sir?
You put up your last slide.
Yeah?
I just wanted to look at it.
Ma'am? So fuel is relationships that you're in, and when you're in that relationship or when you have that person in your life, right, they totally propel you. They either, give you ideas, or they feed you, or they nurture you, or they somehow in some way help you to go forward, right? Kryptonite are the relationships where it cripples you to spend time with them, right? Spending time with that person, you walk away and you feel like you wasted your time, or you feel like they completely demotivated you, right? Or like they don't support what you do, or like they're always skeptical about what it is that you do. Now, here's a little nuance though. I have a person in my life. I see him once a year. He is somebody that is a highly accomplished entrepreneur, angel investor, senior CEO in some executive, in some iconic companies, right? But I only see him once a year. And I know that every time I sit in front of him, he totally cares about me. And he will tell me stuff that I need to hear, but then he also tells me other stuff. The only thing is, his language for me is kind of abrasive. But he's fuel for me, because I know there's nothing behind that except for caring for me. And he tells me things that I won't hear from anybody else, and I'll hear from him. But he's still fuel. Kryptonite is you walk away and you go, oh my God. And you know, sometimes it's our family members, right? Right, your favorite aunt. You have to make a choice. You might not be able to move them out of your life, but you can reprioritize what part they play in your life, right? Did it help? Okay. Yes, ma'am? So that's actually, there's several pieces to that. And so the first piece is the combination of the team, right? Is building that team and having an understanding that you want longevity in your company, because the thing you have to know is that when that person walks out of your company, they're walking out with things in their head that you can't capture unless you can hook them up to the machine and, you know, and download it. So choose your teams and choose the people that you work with wisely. That's the first thing. But the contradictory thing, too, is to understand that not everybody grows and wants to go and be, you know, in like a 100-person company, 500-person company, et cetera, et cetera. So always be in communication about what does that person want for their life, and be in alignment with that. So that helps. The second thing is actually a thing. There's a white paper written way back in the day about above the water and below the water. And everybody has misquoted it. But what it says is this. When there are issues within a team, the first place you look at is goals, the strategy. Then you look at the systems. Then you look at the process. And then you look at how it was defined. And then you look at relationship. We actually turn it upside down. And when there's an issue in the team, the first thing we go to is the person. And we don't work our way to the systems, the process, the goals, or the strategy until, matter of fact, most of the time we don't look at it. We just say it's that person's problem, right? And so having an approach that talks about, let's make sure that we eliminate everything else before we eliminate that relationship with that person. So that's the second thing. The first thing is selection. The second thing is to make sure that the environment and things that are set up for success. And remember that as you grow, especially in a startup, it is very fast. Systems and processes, you know, don't keep up. And then the third thing is it's about endurance and resilience. So some of you may have experienced this. Some of you probably have heard it from friends. A team is struggling. They go out and they do team building, right? They climb trees. They do bowling. They drink beer, whatever it is. They go out and they do that. They have a fantastic time, and they're like, we fixed it. Everybody has built a relationship. Woot, woot, we're going to go back to work, and it's going to be great. They go back, and they're great for like maybe a week, and then they're like back. So what has happened is that I would check the stress level of that team. You know, first I would check the systems and the process, and then I would actually check the stress level of that team. You know, what is the combination ratio of endurance to resilience, and how long have they been forced to work in endurance? And, you know, maybe what they need is not just a one-time team building, but maybe learning how to work with one another in endurance and resilience in those cycles, right? I would check all of that first, and then you can do all kinds of stuff, right? You can make sure that people are compatible and do all of that. But I think those three things at the forefront is really what you have to check. Because when people come together, their intention is to do something great, to have fun, and to be with one another. Their intention isn't to be fighting or to be in this conflict. And so if they are, you want to eliminate first factors that is being overlooked. And then work on the team building and the getting along, because most people want to get along, right? I think you had a question? He has postponed his entrepreneurship because his comfort box was just it became a thing where it's too difficult to climb out of right now, right? So he's there. He wants to do something with technology that really makes a change, that makes a huge impact on us as a people and a society, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Ivy is, I know of Ivy well, and I have a lot of respect for Ivy. I think that they're an interesting space, and I think they have an interesting reputation. But there's some really great people there. So you guys have given me a window to talk about, maybe go a little deeper with this, and it's this, right? We all have intention and ambitions about what it is that we want to do. And you wouldn't be in this room if that wasn't so. You wouldn't be making the sacrifices that you are and foregoing things that you're foregoing unless you were really serious about what you're doing. But life happens. And this is about helping you get through life so that you can continue to do what you're doing. But life still happens. And yes, ma'am. Yeah, it goes to your value system, believe it or not. It goes to what it is that you believe, right? So if you picture there's two categories. There's one category called place, and then there's another category called ground. So place is like this. Place is your identity, your role, your money, your credentials, the relationships that you have, the influence that you have. Place, ground is just you, nothing else. There's nobody else. It's just you. So if you are here in place, right, you're going to endure. Because that changes and you can't give any of that up. And you have to endure and plant yourself and get through everything so you can keep all of that. But if you're at ground and there isn't anything else, and it's just you buck naked the day that you were born, right, you don't have anything to lose. So then, you know what that does? It gives you freedom to choose when things are coming at you, how you're going to handle it. It sounds tangential, but it is what it is. If you're in endurance and you find yourself, this is what endurance feels like. It feels like planting your feet and saying, come at me, I can do this. And you're standing there and, crap is being thrown at you and you're tired and you're weak and you don't see your family and you haven't talked to your mom and dad, and you haven't gone out and had lunch, you haven't done your laundry, but you're going to endure, damn it. You're going to get through this no matter what, right? It's time to take a step back and say, okay, what is so important about this? Is there another way to approach this? And what would happen if I just started with a 15-minute break? And I don't mean like you go watch TV for 15 minutes. I mean you give this a break for 15 minutes. Just give it a break. Whatever that means for you. If it is watching TV, go do it. Or if it's sitting in your room with no technology, go do that. But the most important driver for you is you got to figure out what gets you out of endurance. To understand that being in that, you're actually hurting yourself. So let me say one more thing, and then I'll let you finish. So there is this trend that's happening, especially with women. Do you know what the new logo bag is called? It's a new logo bag. A ton of women are wearing it. You know what it's called? I'm too busy. That's what it's called. I'm too busy, right? So, and then here's the interesting thing. These women don't put down this bag until they hit a major health issue. Then all of a sudden they realize this it bag, the I'm too busy bag, isn't worth it. It is a huge trend in women's health. That's part of endurance. I'm too busy. I'm going to endure this. Things at work are going to hell. I am going to stay there and take care of it. I'm going to work, blah, 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 blah. Sorry, I'm getting on a bit of a soapbox. Anyways, please finish. You had something else to say. Yeah, but it's going to take a lot of your time, right? And that is to actually find out what's going on with him. It sounds like you have a relationship with him, a friendship, a relationship where you guys can talk. In order to get someone out of endurance, find time with them. Start off with lunch because everybody has to eat, or dinner, right? Everybody has to eat. Sit down with them and slowly help them peel back what is going on with them. What is it that they're believing that they're doing, and what is it that they believe that is so important that they are doing this to themselves? And help them to just think about that. It's for somebody to transform, they have to do the work. But for you to ignite that transformation, you ask questions. That's the bottom tenet of coaching, right? I can't transform you. You have to transform yourself. And I can help you do that by asking you questions. Questions that is based out of care and empathy. So if you spend time with him and you ask him questions to help him reflect on what it is that's so important. What is it that he's believing about what he's doing, right? And help him to broaden his perspective. You will help him move, first of all, realize he's in endurance, and then move to resilience. Welcome. Okay, you know what I just did? I just did the introvert's trick on you. So there's introverts in the room, and the trick is that when you're doing a talk, right, what you do is you don't just say, anybody have questions, and then walk off. You have to give them time, right? So you stand up here and you do 1001, 1002, 1003, you get to 10, and then if no one asks a question, then you're safe. So thank you so much for your time.
You're guys can hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. Where's the slide? Okay. All right, now we're ready to go.
Many technical details. Thank you.
But before we start, I kind of want to do a legal disclaimer just to make sure everyone knows that this is not legal advice. This is just general guidance to help you along. And our goal here is not to also give you a super comprehensive look at trademarks and copyrights. It's merely to, if you'll consider it, just a Jeopardy version of it. So you could maybe get a few questions right. So let's start with an overview. What is IP? It's a general term generally used for assets in a marketplace that have value but are intangible and ephemeral. There's four major portions of IP, and it's trademarks, copyrights, patents, and trade secrets. But today we're actually not going to cover patents and trade secrets. So when you think of trademarks, you generally think of branding and counterfeit goods. And when you think of copyrights, you generally think of piracy. And one thing to note about IP is that they're not mutually exclusive, and they serve different purposes, and they can be combined. All right, let's start with trademarks. Trademarks, what are they? They are words, symbols, slogans, product and packaging design, also called trade dress, that are source identifiers. So when you think of the Hershey Kiss, when you see that there, you automatically think of Hershey or Hershey Kisses. If another company within the food and beverage market were to come up with something like that, they would be infringing on Hershey's trademarks. And it's the same. I mean, I'm sure you guys have all seen these and heard about these slogans. These are probably some of the most famous ones, but you know, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, even the way Coca-Cola is written, they have a trademark on that kind of writing as well. The golden arches, I'm loving it. Nike, the apple with the bite in it, just do it. All of these are source identifiers. So when you just see that swoosh sign, you automatically think of Nike. And here's a list of the non-conventional marks, and these are ones that you probably generally don't think of on a daily basis or you see on a daily basis. And these include sound, color, fragrance, design of a business establishment, and certification mark. I'll briefly go down each one, but when you think of like the lion roaring when you watch a movie, you automatically, it should be automatically associated with MGM. And they have a trademark on that, and nobody within the movie industry or the TV or cinema, anything, would be able to do the same sound. So when you think of color, a good example of that is the Tiffany & Company, the baby blue color, and the Louboutin shoes. If any other shoe creator or fashion house were to create shoes and they had red soles, they would be an infringement of Louboutin's trademarks. An example of fragrance is if you go into the Verizon store, they have they have a trademark on what they call flowery musk. All the stores, they smell the same. You may not have, I guess, realized it before, but next time you go into Verizon store, pick up on that. These are non-conventional for a reason. These are really, really hard to get, and you have to, my understanding is that you have to be in the market for a while before you can actually get some sort of association like that. So. Another example is the design of a business establishment. Two good examples of that are the Starbucks and the Apple stores. If you go into every single Starbucks, they pretty much look the same, with the same kind of colors, the paneling, the seating, the layout. Even if there was no sign that said Starbucks, you would automatically know that you were in a Starbucks store. And same thing with an Apple. The last one is a certification mark, and these two you have probably seen but probably not paid attention to. The most famous one is the champagne one. So only sparkling wine that comes from the Champagne region of France can be called champagne, and as a result, a lot of the trade associations, to kind of protect their mark and protect their trademark, they have a champagne certification. So any bottle that you buy that's called champagne should also have that certification mark to guarantee you that what you're getting is coming from the Champagne region of France. And what are they not? these copyrights and trademarks are two forms of IP that are generally kind of confused oftentimes. I think before I went to law school, I certainly did not know the difference. But I don't know if you can kind of see it, but the source identifiers, the trademarks, I've circled. And so Coca-Cola, I'm loving it. The Golden Arches from McDonald's, Big Mac, Extra Value Meal. These are all source identifiers. Immediately when you think of them, you automatically think of McDonald's or Coca-Cola. When you take this picture as a whole, this picture is an advertisement that has a copyright protection on it. The images, you so want one, all that text, it's all copyright. Why do they matter? I'm not going to go down this entire list, but they pretty much matter because strong marks can really increase the value of your business. If you think of a business like Starbucks, the majority of a really large percentage of their income from being able to license their trademarks. And if they didn't have that value, we all know what would happen there. But that's really kind of one of the main reasons why people trademark their business, and they go through lengthy efforts to maintain that it's not tarnished and that it doesn't become generic and that it doesn't become diluted. There are 4 ways to secure a federal trademark. There are you select, you clear, you apply, and monitor. I know none of that makes any sense to you, but hopefully by the end of this presentation it will. The first one is you select the strength of your mark. In trademark law, there's something called a distinctiveness spectrum. So marks that are on the lower end are the generic marks. So if you're trying to create an ice cream parlor and you want to call it an ice cream or just ice cream in general, you're not going to be able to trademark that. So because it's a generic term, am I still within bounds? Yes. And the more you go towards the other end of the spectrum, which is what trademark calls fanciful, that means a word that's kind of made up, or it's just something that you haven't heard or you wouldn't necessarily associate with that product, like Haagen-Dazs. I actually looked that up. I actually thought that was a Danish word for ice cream, but it's actually not. It doesn't mean anything, and so it's a fanciful mark. The one thing to note is if you're a generic for sure, you won't get trademark protection. But if you're a descriptive mark, like American Airlines, it's going to be a hard sell for you to actually get protection, and it's probably just not an area you want to stay within. For the clearance, there's quite a process to clear to see if you can actually use the mark once you've selected the name. You can conduct a search on the USPTO database. It's got everything that's been, I think, registered since the 1950s, or it goes back pretty far. And you're going to want to check for all sorts of different alterations of the name, different spellings. You can also do a quick Google search. I mean, nowadays everything kind of pops up there anyway. One thing to take away from this is international words. That's why I mentioned Haagen-Dazs before, is international words are translated to English before they are given trademark protection. So if Haagen-Dazs did indeed mean ice cream in Danish, before they were to get U.S. trademark protection, they would not have been able to. And one thing also to note before I go to the next slide is trademarks are territorial. So what that means is that if you file in the United States, you only get protection in the United States. There are some exceptions with the Madrid Protocol, but I don't think I have time today to kind of go over that, but that is one of the exceptions. Another thing to note is that in the United States, we are a first-to-use country, which is different from most other countries, actually, where they are first to file. The next one is the 3 levels of protection. In the United States, because we're first to use, we do offer common law rights. And what that means is once you start using your mark in commerce, you've got your packaging done, you've got social media channels, you've got a website, as long as you're not enforcing on someone's already protected trademarks, you have certain limited protections under trademark law. It's not a very good space to be in, and especially if you expect your business to do well or if you want to enforce your mark in other states, but it does give you limited rights. These rights are generally not observed in other jurisdictions around the world. Probably the protection that you're going to want to seek as an entrepreneur for a business is federal law, and you're going to want to try to get a federal registration through the USPTO office. With that, it is more expensive than the others, but it certainly offers you the highest number of protections, and you can enforce your rights in all states. Again, for the application process, a lot of the research can be done. Oh, sure. I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, if you're incorporating and this is your business name or you're working as this business, how does that relate to like the trademark or like if you're incorporating in one state, how does that, what if someone incorporates in another state with the same name?
Oh, good question. David?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Kind of, I think what they're touching on is like if you are going to, because there's two separate issues, right? Like the actual name of your entity, but then a lot of people doing business as. So your entity name could be Novice Washingtonius Inc. or whatever, and you never actually use that. But if that's the name you're going to use in commerce, then it starts to become a trademark. I don't think a company like Coca-Cola might be looking at incorporations in various states, but you're probably not going to come on anyone's radar until you actually start using that mark. I don't know if does that answer your question?
So like if you're doing business as this is not, let's say, incorporating,
Which is very normal, right?
yeah, then that's like a trademark.
Yeah, because I mean, a trademark is literally like a name used to identify the source of goods. So I'm selling bottles of water. I'm selling them under company X, right? Like company X is on the bottle, so people know that company X is selling the bottle. If company X is nowhere on the bottle, then it's not used as a trademark. Does that make sense?
So what I was saying before was that you can do a lot of the research on your own. It is lengthy. The USPTO does provide the resources. They've got really great video content on their website to be able to, they walk you through the process pretty well. But it does take a lot of time to understand the different application procedures and the terms of art that trademark law has. When to use a lawyer, that's certainly, I think, a question a lot of entrepreneurs kind of juggle with is, I just stumbled upon this article in the Wall Street Journal that said trademark applicants who hire an attorney are 50% more likely to get a trademark approval from the USPTO than if they did it on their own. And I suspect this is the main reason for that is because of the terms of art and the different procedures and the nuances that are on the actual application application itself are they do take time to really understand, and you want to work with somebody that's kind of worked through dozens of these and hundreds of these, so they've got the experience. So when to use a lawyer, you're going to want to use a lawyer, I think, if you've got multiple classes, if you've got infringement cases, if you've got complicated cases, if you've got office actions, and if you want to minimize your risk. Sure.
What is a class?
So a class in trademark is different industries that you can apply to. So each class is about $225. A lot of brands only have one class because they only operate within one industry. But say you've got an apparel company that also does travel or something, right? They combine different kinds of industries. You're going to want to apply for trademark in the different classes.
So
Yeah.
that means that if the trademark that I'm looking for
Yeah.
is not used at the class, but I want to operate, I can apply for that trademark in that class because it's available.
If it's available, yeah, of course, yeah.
Sorry, so just yes, generally, but like it's kind of, and she'll get into likelihood of confusion. So if the trademarks are kind of sort of similar, and you're using them on kind of similar goods, then that could be an infringement case. Versus if I'm trying to think of some examples of companies that operate in one space, and there's another company that operates in something completely separate. You can imagine like airport engineer or something like
And then going down to the fees, they do get a little bit expensive, and I mean, this is probably not an area. I mean, if you've got the time, do it by yourself. But if you kind of want to minimize the risk, like I think this upfront investment is certainly worth saving you the headache later on. So it's about $1,000 to $1,500 if you go to a law firm, and that's just for the filing. That doesn't include any office actions, and what office actions are it's when you apply to the USPTO, they'll return with if they've cleared it, if they've approved it, or if they need additional information, and those are called office actions. The timeline is, I don't think you guys can see that, but in general, it's you after you file it, you wait about 3 to 6 months for the next step, and what either that's publication if they approve it, or it's an office action if more information is needed. And it's about 18 to 36 months on average for the total process. And the 3 symbols, which I'm sure you guys have all seen floating around on the internet, you cannot use the registered R mark in the United States without a USPTO federal registration. In the U, it's actually against the law, and I think you could be fined a pretty hefty amount for it as well. In the United States, you don't necessarily get fined for it, but you could potentially be found liable under false advertising or fraud laws. And you cannot use them for federal pending or approved state registrations either. And then the TM and the SM, they signify unregistered marks. The TM represents goods, and the SM represents services. And the last step of securing a federal trademark registration is the monitoring part. This is probably one of the most important parts. Once you've already gotten your trademark, it's been approved by the USPTO, you definitely want to police your mark. And what that means is you want to conduct internet searches regularly. You want to go on social media. You want to see how your mark is being used in the marketplace, what your customers are saying about it, how they're interacting with it. You're going to want to review business databases. And you're going to want to look out for 3 things. One is the unauthorized use, the other one's the genericide, and the third one's dilution. And unauthorized use, I think everyone kind of can figure out what that means. Genericide is, Google is currently experiencing that. When we say that we're going to go search something on the internet, how many people actually say, I'm going to go search this on Google, right? They just say, I'm going to Google it. Google is pushing back against that because once their trademark becomes generic, they lose their trademark protection from the USPTO, and there is a lot of value wound up in the Google trademark currently. So if they were to lose it, that would be, I would say, hundreds and millions and billions of dollars. Dilution is counterfeit goods, false advertising. And currently, you'll see a lot of fashion houses that are suing marketplaces such as Amazon, eBay, Alibaba, iOffer, and they're also suing individual sellers as well. So the last thing is in the infringement test. Say you do find somebody that's infringing on your trademark. The test that the law generally uses is what is the likelihood of confusion. Like David was saying before, is that you can have the same name in different industries, but there just cannot be any sort of confusion between customers cannot be sort of unsure as to, wait, is this the airline or is this the shopping market or something? You just have to make sure that whatever industries that you're working in are completely different from the ones that are existing. I'm not going to go over the different 8 factors, but it's quite extensive, the analysis that is used. Another thing to note is that trademark is a strict liability offense, and while that may not mean anything to you guys, what it really means is that intent or knowledge doesn't matter. So if you infringe on someone else's trademark, even unknowingly, you could be fined for it. So that's trademarks in a nutshell. And I'm going to let Lourdes take over in copyrights, and then I think you guys can ask questions after that.
So I cover the copyright part, and copyright is these symbols. If you register, you will get this symbol. And it's important to know that copyright is in the Constitution. Like, Constitution gives power to Congress to pass law and protect the authors and inventors of the exclusive rights. And because we live in a technological era, in 1988, Congress passed a law called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And this means like if you put your contents, your copyright contents in YouTube or Amazon and you see another person infringing your copyright, you can ask the service provider like YouTube to take down that. It's interesting because these companies doesn't have liability for that, so you need to go directly to the infringer. So what isn't copyright? Because to know what is copyright, you need to know what it's not covered. So ideas, it's not covered under copyrights, needs to be original and fixed intangible medium, like a book, a song, a canvas, anything like that. So other things not protected, even though you fix it in tangible media, like the bicycle, it's not protected under copyright because it's useful. Might have other IPs like patents or maybe trademarks if it's under some companies, but not copyright. Or Mickey Mouse, the phone, it's not protected. So what is copyright? Copyright is literary work or like books, music, like drama, anything like you think about, like have an expression of originality. So if you are the owner of the copyright, you have exclusive rights, and these rights are reproduce and publish it, create derivative work. Like if you have a book, you are the creator or the author of the book, you have the right to produce the movie. Even though copyright it's not necessary to register because you are covered by copyright law without the registration, it's a process and it's very easy. And in the next slides I will cover what are the benefits, and you can have done through internet. And the benefits to register the copyrights is you establish public record that you are the owner of the copyright. And if you see another person using your copyright, to have a lawsuit to that person, you need to register the copyright. So it's important that because since you register your artwork, you can have the statutory damage. So it's a lot of money since you register since you create the work. Yeah, it provides legal presumption that the copyright is valid. Like the ownership of the copyright. So the Copyright Act say that the author of the copyright is the owner is the author. So it was very interesting one case that a photographer went to Indonesia and left his camera in the jungle, and one monkey went there and took selfies of himself. And so the photographer was like, I'm the owner of these photos, and court say no, you are not the owner, it's the monkey, and a monkey can be owner of the copyright. It needs to be a human being. So how long does it last? So it's very interesting because other IPs are very short, or you need to renew and everything, but copyright is like more than 120 years if you create it like before, until 70 years after the author death. So it might be like 120, it's very long. And this have an interesting reason behind maybe, because I don't know if you know the Mickey Mouse. And so in 1998, it was almost expiring, the copyright in the Mickey Mouse. So they changed the law and extend 14 years more. And now the Mickey Mouse have protection until 2023. So let's see if they renew a little bit more or no. So coming back to the ownership, if you are employer and you create something, the default rule is the owner of that copyright is the employer. And if you are independent contractor, so someone tells you to do a work, the default rule is also the employer, it's the owner. But it's very, like the recommendation is like you need to contract about because the court can interpret in some other ways. It's not, the law is not clear in this sense, so it's recommended to contract. So what are the limits? So if you pass all these years and it's not anymore copyright protection, anyone can use the copyright. So it says that it's in public domain, so anyone can use it, like the Happy Birthday song. You can use it without permission. And coming back to this, there are some issues when you use copyright without permission. And this fair use doctrine, it's defense, affirmative defense. So we are in litigation. And if you are using, for example, this image, so one photographer took the left photograph and the new transformed it a little bit. Since my view it's not that much, but court interpreted that it's so different that it's totally go to different consumer, and this is not copyright infringement. So it depends, and the last decision is to the court. So the recommendation, if you are going to use a copyright, you need to ask for permission to the owner. And yeah, if you have any questions or
Sure.
So the trademark TM and SM, you said that they were unregistered. So anyone could use that. So does that have to be on file?
Oh yeah, sure. Is the TM and SM, can anyone use them because they're unregistered? So in my understanding is that if you have a state registration, for example, which actually don't hold a whole lot of value, to be honest, not much more than common law already gives you, is that is the symbol that you would use. You can actually use the circle R for that. In essence, I mean, yes, potentially anybody can use them, but I guess active, you can trademark the name, you can trademark the slogan, you can trademark, I guess you could also do that under copyright, the look and feel. You could, the code would definitely be under copyright protection. In terms of the domain, you could also, I mean, just the branding of it, you would be able to protect under trademark law.
Okay, and I don't know, I'm not sure. So, like, what about like the actual UI? So, for example, like Uber, for example, right? What is it? Can a company like copy directly, or is that protected?
Like the way the
Like
user
the looks?
interacts with
Yeah,
it.
basically, or maybe like modify it a little bit and then go ahead and use an application. Is that possible, or is that protected?
That's a good question. Do you know the answer, or David, do you know the answer?
Yeah, the UI would be copyright. Because I mean, if you think about it, it's basically a picture, right? Like you're looking at more or less a picture. So that's kind of what Lourdes was talking about, how copyright is very powerful. Like it's thin protection, but it's very powerful. So, you know, if someone literally copied the UI of Uber, Uber would definitely sue that person. But, you know, if you took the sort of idea of it and, you know, changed all the fonts, changed the colors, changed like a little bit of the display of it, but we're like generally like, oh, I like kind of having this one element in the left corner instead of the right corner. That's when you start to get sort of it becomes a question of whether you're actually copying the UI. I don't know if that answers your question though.
No, not that. Okay.
And the other thing I was just gonna say is on. Do you want to talk intent to use applications for trademark?
Yeah. So there's three types of applications. One is intent to use. That means that you've just thought of the mark, but you haven't quite used it in the market. Like you haven't really done any packaging, you haven't done any sort of advertising or anything. You can file it for that, and I think you have 6 months. 6 months.
And you can get extensions.
And then you can keep getting extensions. I think you can get up to 4 extensions, 6 months apart, to be able to use it. So if you just kind of want to reserve the name, but you haven't quite figured out how you're wanting to structure your business, there is that possibility.
So then, Uber is not supposed to write an application. It's supposed to keep it pure and Uber. If I understand correctly.
In my understanding, Uber means super, right? In German. I actually do not know if they have a trademark on.
Yeah, so the question would be, is there a super in English, right? Because you can.
Well, it's also I mean, it's definitely a word that would
Yeah.
have to be translated as that.
Yeah, and so I think what Nisa was.
Unless they drop if that's
The
the
umlaut.
umlaut,
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
that has to be.
Well, so it's. But I think. Yeah. Do you want to take it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the characters actually don't matter. When it's translated, it's just translated into just the basic whatever it means. And you can't, when you trademark something that is a foreign word, the characters with the accents, the umlaut, any of the French ones, they don't transfer over.
But and just to add to that, because that's totally right. But it's like the key is that it's Uber, and you associate the name Uber with an application that calls cars, right? So they don't have full rights. Like they can't prevent you from saying Uber. They can prevent you from creating an application that calls cars called Uber or Super or you know I don't know.
You could have a supermarket called Uber if you
Yeah.
wanted to, because it's not, there's no likelihood of confusion from a consumer's perspective. Like, if I saw a supermarket, I wouldn't automatically associate it with, like, the actual app, the mobile app, so.
Yeah, but if I understand correctly, the actual process, you could also have a car. I mean, they just can't trademark the name.
I guess I don't really quite understand your question. David, do you have
Well, I
anything
think
to add to that?
you know they can use it as a trademark, assuming there's no other company using it as a trademark for
understanding is McDonald's probably got this trademark a long time ago. And so I think the rules have become a little bit more rigorous and a little bit more, the process has just become a little bit, just a little bit more stringent because all these companies have kind of come into the marketplace. I think that they would, if they were to try to get that slogan today, they would probably hit a lot more hurdles than they did back then. But I do understand what you're saying. But I would say that's probably partly the main reason. David, do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add is that, with these slogans, there's that process that we were talking about. Like, if you say, I'm loving it, it's pretty unclear what you're loving, right? Like, it could be anything. So the difficulty with slogans is consumers have to start associating the slogan with an underlying service. So in that sense, I think it's actually a decent trademark in that, when I think I'm loving it, I think burgers, I think fries and soda and all that. And that's kind of in the suggestive jump, on that spectrum. Like, it's certainly, they need some good lawyering in there, but the difficulty that slogans run into is that it has to be sort of associated with an underlying service. So like with t-shirt companies, we were talking about that if you just have like 100 different shirts with 100 different slogans, they aren't really functioning as trademarks. It's just an artistic expression. No one knows your brand is actually, company X. And that's, I think it highlights actually slogans are tricky, as you were saying.
Yeah, they are tricky, and I think the entire trademark and copyright process are they're generally complicated. So, yeah.
So when you said that trademarks is first to like instead of the file when you get, and then also copyright is the when you first make it and you own it. So how do you distinguish if there's two people who say they made or they say that, oh, I trademarked it like for example, like what if you have a really small company, like a person who's not really popular on social media who created a post, but then there's another person who around the same time is really popular. So how do you distinguish between what kind of evidence you guys look at?
There are many cases in court, like for example songs. If the song is already in the market and you inspired by this song and you create something, but your source is this song, you won't you will be like infringing that copyright. But if there are that two songs similar and go out to the market same time and there are nothing to be together, they are separate, so it's nothing.
So again, that's another tricky kind of situation, I think, for copyright law, and somewhat maybe even trademark law is implicated there too. But I think at that point, if it got to the courts would really kind of go through the fair use and kind of see was the new piece of artwork, was it transformative enough where it was changed, enough to be considered a new piece of artwork, or was it completely taken off by the original artwork? But a lot of that comes down to the way the courts view it and the analysis that they use.
Yeah.
Sure.
For genericide, is there like data behind that? Is there a survey? 75% of people use Google now, so now you're done. Next year, 74%, so now you're back. Like, is there?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I'm not familiar with any. I don't know if Lourdes or David are, but I'm sure there is.
Yeah, they would use survey evidence, and they go because you're really it's so squishy because the question is what an average consumer. So the judge or the jury is always going to decide it based on what they think an average consumer is, and so all of that evidence would be used for sure.
Surveys are expensive, so normally it's for huge companies. So.
Yeah.
Could you tell a couple of slides back? I saw 2 years, 1923 and 1963. I'm not clear about.
This one?
There is 1963.
63.
Yeah.
these are in public domain now. So all the work that was created between 1923 to 1963,
So
it
this also conforms to the rule that the author holds the copyright for 70 years after that.
exact, yeah.
Okay.
Is there any way you could, like, could you challenge McDonald's on Love It? Like, could someone who's really wealthy and feel like they want to have some fun time with McDonald's could say, I want to challenge it, that's not correct anymore. Could they challenge that trademark?
Challenge it on what grounds though?
I don't know. They have a lot of money flow, and they want to say that I'm loving it is not is too generic to be a trademark. They just want to like ruin McDonald's reputation. They just don't like McDonald's stuff.
They wouldn't
Could
get
someone
very
do that?
far, in my understanding.
Huh?
They wouldn't be able to get very far, in my understanding.
No? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, once you have federal trademark registration, it's really up to the USPTO to decide when it becomes generic. Yeah, they probably wouldn't have a whole lot of legs to stand on that lawsuit.
Can McDonald's challenge or sue somebody because they say, I'm loving it?
Not just for saying it, but like say Burger King, if they wanted to come out with the same slogan, they can certainly sue Burger King. But say somebody in a completely different industry, in a completely different market, where it would not impact McDonald's market at all or their consumer base, probably not. They wouldn't be able to sue on those grounds.
I think the only thing I'd add is you're right. I think it actually highlights because Lourdes' presentation and he says that in the trademark world there has to be some underlying goods and services. The difference is that's sort of the classic law professor thing is you start off saying to be is that the copyright you say to be or not to be or not to be that is the question blah 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 and to a certain point you get to a Shakespearean sonnet and that is copyrightable. Then if you start right. It's in the public domain. But the point is that
America first? Copyright?
Is what?
Trademark? America first.
It might be descriptive, but I'm not sure. But the point is that like with copyright, like if you sing a song, then that could be copyright infringement. If you say a trademark, that wouldn't be trademark infringement unless you're selling something to go with that, right? It's a tricky
It's
distinction.
complicated.
Very nuanced.
Yeah.
Any
It's
other
very
questions?
lawyerly.
Yeah. Any other questions? Sure.
Yeah, I guess this kind of already been answered, but like a lot of quarterbacks nowadays are like the trademark. You like that, for example, with Washington Redskins quarterback trademarked that, and they sell T-shirts with it. So if I printed on a T-shirt, you like that, but made sure with a different font, different logo, nothing related to the Washington Redskins, would that be okay?
My understanding is yes, as long as you're not sort of causing any sort of market harm to the existing consumer base that would buy those T-shirts.
As long as like no evidence that people were buying that shirt, thinking that they were getting something that would express their love for.
So that
the
would kind of
quarterback
be the
or
key
Washington
is that like is there any sort of likelihood of confusion for the people that are buying it? Like is there any way that like what you're selling that they think that they're actually getting, some sort of the quarterback's T-shirt or something like that? Yeah. If there's no likelihood of confusion and it's like literally like in a completely different country or something like, then probably not. You'd probably be okay with that.
So, like, just to piggyback off of that, I was thinking about how when Taylor Swift released her album for, I think it was, I don't know, 22, I don't know how many of her albums, but she I think got a copyright or a trademark out on the, like, 22, let's say, and then she ended up, like, suing a bunch of people on Etsy that were, like, selling things that had, like, 22 on it, that was, like, meant to proclaim their love for Taylor Swift. Is that, like, an example of his referencing? Because she was suing people that were selling things and saying, oh my god, Taylor.
So it kind of depends, like I think something to maybe think about in that situation is like, did those people on Etsy only start selling those things after after her album came out? Like, was the font similar? Was there any reason to
also it's like free marketing. Like if you are putting on internet products from other company, like it's like what David says. The company like wants to enforce that, or it's okay with them.
For you to be able to sell it, my understanding is that you would have to get a license from the actual person that owns that trademark. Because what you're doing is there is probably a high likelihood of confusion in an instance like that, because you're using the logo as is. You're not changing anything. You're not, kind of adding your own flair to it. And consumers are probably going to think that, that you're affiliated with the brand that actually owns the trademark. So in an instance like that, that's probably something you want to steer clear of.
I guess I got another tricky question. Say you find a recipe online that someone just put out there, like some mother who like makes cookies for her children, just like, hey, this is my recipe, and then you start using that recipe, you start selling cookies made out of it. Like, is that like illegal or?
So as a general rule, recipes are not copyright
What was that?
Recipes no are not copyright protected,
Okay.
but maybe the way they put or how they present can be, but it's like it's a difficult thing to protect.
Yeah. Usually how they'll get banged is in a copyright case like that, the plaintiff will find the defendant was actually like this happened in the yoga cases where they found that they were circulating the recipe within the company, and so that was an infringement to use the actual sort of recipe that you created, word for word. But actually, like creating the cookies wouldn't be copyright infringement. I don't know. Does that distinction make sense? So,
Well, without the recipe, you can't make that cookie dough.
right, but that's kind of what Lourdes was getting at with copyright, right? That
They're not,
what is it?
yeah, they're not protected.
Said that recipe in a cookbook.
That would, or sorry, I'll let you take
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, no, you.
So the recipe itself, like putting how much you need to put the chocolate and have flour, it's not protected. But the way you express, maybe can be protected.
The way you sell it or put it on a plate.
Like literally the words.
The words in
recipe,
the book, yeah.
in the order that they're in the display.
How you present the recipe itself, not the
Exactly.
product. Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
It's a creative